coordination and anti-coordination games are relatively easy to resolve if we can communicate. If, for example, we're making our decision about which console to buy, and we can communicate and decide on it with our friend, then it's easy to make that choice of buying the same console. Where this becomes interesting is if we aren't able to communicate with one another. How do we make that decision at that point? How do we decide which of the consoles to buy, or which place, which way to take a trip on the highway or on the back roads if we can't communicate with other people about those choices? In the absence of being able to communicate, there might be other ways in which we can coordinate. One role here for government is to set down rules and standards by which we can each judge the right thing to do in these coordination games. So one example of that is a driving game, where you're trying to decide, should you drive on the left-hand side of the road or drive on the right-hand side of the road. Now, you guys, I'm pretty sure, mostly come from America. America is obviously a place where we drive on the right. I come from New Zealand, a country in which we drive on the left. And so this is something that has been a little bit tricky for me occasionally, particularly my first couple of days in either country. It can be hard to adjust to driving on the correct side of the road for that country. You see, everyone driving on the left and everyone driving on the right are both Nash equilibria of the game. They're both situations in which nobody has an incentive to change by themselves away from the choice that other people are making. Particularly with respect to the driving game, driving on the left or driving on the right, we typically resolve this with laws, but another way of thinking about it is that throughout our history we have all coalesced to drive on the same side of the road in the same sort of location. Now imagine that it was better to switch, better to be on one side of the road than the other. For example, imagine you're in Europe and you're one of the few countries that still drives on the left. It's much more convenient to drive on the right because that's what all the other countries in Europe do, and so you would like perhaps to switch over to the other equilibrium. This was actually achieved by Sweden, and if you watch the next video, you'll see a little description of how that happened.